Good morning, I am Abdul Karim Emuti and I am one of the reporter who will be discussing the approaches, method, and strategies of teaching science. So what is the importance of teaching? What is the importance of knowing this approaches, method of teaching science? So of course, with the evolutions of our teaching education field, we also have to evolve. And learning this approaches, methods, and strategies of teaching science, it will make us more progressive, productive, and of course, and also effective teacher. So knowing this will make our students learn as well as be creative and innovative. So the assigned to me was the approaches of teaching science. So I have here the three approaches. We have the inquiry, I also have here the problem solving, and the demonstration approach. So first, we have here the inquiry approach. So what is an inquiry approach? So basically an inquiry approach, it is an approach which you allow students to inquire. So it begin with pausing event. So for example, you give your students a problem about blowing up an electric bulb in the classroom. So that's actually a problem that your students need to answer and or give a solution or give their own observation hypothesis. So in order for you to make sure that your students will be able to understand that better, you have to input this approach, the inquiry approach, to make them learn it better. So you will allow them to inquire to you as a teacher. So you let them ask to you whatever they wanted to ask that they think that is related to this problem, kung sa tingin nila is makakapagbigay yon ng solusyon sa kanilang problem. So your role naman as a teacher is kailangan din you have to guide them, but you have to respond yes or no only. Kasi sa pagre-respond natin ng yes or no is kumbaga is na hindi natin nabibigyan ng sobrang concrete na idea yung mga bata, but rather we lead them to a good path of their hypothesis, of course. And yun na nga, so you should avoid giving them a ready-made answer. So for example, nagtanong sila na, sir, bakit ganyan? So hindi kailangan iwasan mong sagutin yun na dahil ganito ganyan. So iwasan mo yun, but rather sagutin mo sila ng if you think na mali yung sinasabi nila, if bakit ganito ba sir yung nangyayari? If you think mali, sabihin mo no. And if you think medyo malapit na sa tama, pwedeng sabihin mo ng yes. So in that case is parang mas nabuboost pa yung observation nila, yung experimentations nila doon sa problem na yun. So until such time na makaka-formulate din sila ng hypothesis after a series of asking questions. So pag nagtanong-tanong sila yan, makakabuo din sila ng hypothesis niyan. So after makabuo sila ng hypothesis, of course, you have to let them verify their hypothesis. So kailangan nilang ma-verify yung hypothesis nila kasi maaaring marami silang maging hypothesis. And we should know, we should be like we should be aware naman na ang hypothesis can be rejected and accepted. It depends if proven ba na may tama yung hypothesis or proven ba na mali yung hypothesis. So of course, it can be identified by if malapit yung hypothesis sa result and it's giving a scientific explanation naman, so it can be accepted. But if that hypothesis is merely from like baseless opinions, baseless experiment, or baseless scientific methods, so of course you have to reject that idea kasi hindi siya tama. And so, how to use this approach? So of course, using this approach is kailangan mo magbigay sa kanila ng problem because yung problem na yon ang maglilid sa kanila to have hypothesis. Kung walang problema, there's no inquiry-based approach. So of course, one of the most important factor here in using this approach is also, of course, giving them a problem. So after giving a problem, allow the child to observe, allow the child to experiment, and allow the child to answer to you. To ask you a series of questions. So your role also here is kailangan ang binibigay mo lang na sagot is yes, no, yes, and no. And avoid giving the students a direct, or should I say ready-made answer. Kasi doon sa ready-made answer na yun, it will not make this approach possible. So of course, kasi kapag binigay mo na yung idea, binigay mo na yung ready-made answer, hindi na siya inquiry approach. Kasi nawala na doon yung sense ng inquiry. So that's why, in using this, we have to remember to give problem, allow child to inquire, give yes or no answer, and avoid ready-made answer. Next one is allow students to make an hypothesis as much as possible, more than one hypothesis. And lastly is to investigate and verify if the hypothesis is correct. So that's it. So ganun lang gamitin itong approach na tong inquiry approach. So it is very perfect to use this in a science class. Of course, we all know naman na sa science class is madami tayong experiment, laboratory works, and there are many innovations that really fitted to this approach. Kasi sa inquiry approach, kailangan dyan may problema. So, check ang science. So, that's why magandang gamitin itong inquiry approach sa science. But later on, we will be discussing also the disadvantage of this and advantage of this approach. But before that, we have to let us discuss bakit kailangan or when we need to use this approach and why we need to use this approach. So, bakit kailangan natin itong gamitin at kailan ba natin to dapat gamitin. So of course, gagamitin natin ito if we want to develop the spirit of inquiry in our children. So kapag gusto natin na ma-develop yung inquiry spirit sa mga children natin or mga student natin, gamitin natin itong approach because this is very perfect for us to boost or develop their inquiry spirit. And also very good, very ideal na ma-improve natin yung kanilang inquiry skills kasi it is very important, especially in making an hypothesis that they will be experiencing along the way in their education journey. So why we need to use this? Of course, we need to use this approach to develop the inquiry skills of our students, as well as to allow them to explore more than what their teacher can give them. So let them express their own curiosity by doing a series of experiments and finding out the problems or solutions to the problem. So that's it. So now let's move on to the advantage of this approach. So of course, one of the advantage of this is children are proactive and work under the guidance of the teacher. So since yun na, this is a work na kailangan dito is yung mga bata yung gagalaw. So it will actually benefit them in a sense of improving their proactive individual work or group work or their brainstorming or their peering skills. So this one will improve the students better in terms of making them more active and finding out a solution to a problem. The next one is they learn to formulate hypotheses and also verify their hypothesis. So another one kagandahan dito or advantage ng approach na ito is that yun na nga, it will allow the students to create or formulate an hypothesis. So in that sense, it's kumbaga is na ma-masterize ng mga student mo or ng mga student yung pag-formulate ng hypothesis. So we all know that formulating hypothesis is very important for us to learn better. Especially, mamimit din natin yung pag-formulate ng hypothesis along the way kasi marami pa yung journey nila in the education and training them basic knowledge about formulating hypothesis very ideal. And also verifying that hypothesis. Siyempre, kasi bibigyan natin sila ng problem, mag-hypothesis sila, so they need to verify it. So of course, it is also an advantage na matututunan nilang i-verify yung mga hypothesis nila na hindi lang gawa ng hypothesis na hindi naman ma-verify. So, yun. So that's two are the advantage of inquiry approach. And the last advantage here is that they are trained to learn on their own. Natatrain sila na gumawa ng kanila na hindi lang sila nagre-rely sa kung ano yung maibibigay ng kanilang teacher. So nagre-rely na din sila sa kanilang sarili and this promotes individual work. So yun yung kagandahan or advantage ng approach na ito. And now, since may advantage tayo, so of course, hindi rin natin may iwasan na magkaroon ng disadvantage sa approach na ito. So, ang mga ilan sa mga disadvantage sa approach na ito is first, this method is slow and time-consuming. So, of course, since you are letting your students work on their own, so syempre, malaki yung kailangan nilang i-google na time dito. Kasi gagawa sila ng hypothesis, magtatanong sila, i-verify yung hypothesis nila. So this will be very time consuming. Next is not suitable to children of all age. So since this allows students to formulate hypothesis and verify their hypothesis, so hindi lahat ng edad ng bata or hindi lahat ng bata ay naaayon na gumawa ng approach na ito. So maybe this will be ideal to those in the intermediate elementary, but in the primary I don't think this is necessary. Of course, kasi mahihirapan silang gumawa ng hypothesis, and lalong-lalo na yung pag-verify ng hypothesis. That's why this is not ideal to be like gawin sa mga primary education. And next is require practice for teachers to teach since by this approach. So since hindi natin nakasanayan itong approach na ito, it will actually require us to train. So it will take a lot of time, and kapag hindi natin na-masterize, maaaring maging wrong path yung maging hypothesis ng ating mga students. So that's why disadvantage na yun ng approach na ito. So next we have here the problem solving approach. So ang approach na ito, or the problem solving approach, is for teaching science as a technique which provides children an opportunity to solve scientific problem quite independently or through a guided approach by following systematic steps. So when you want this approach to teach a science topic, you will have start your lesson with a problem. So pinaka main idea here sa problem solving approach is giving a problem. Of course, kapag walang problema, wala silang bibigyan ng solusyon. So one of the biggest thing is giving them a problem. So there is steps in problem solving approach. So, sa step na ito is, of course, we have here the problem. That's the number one step. Kailangan may problema tayo. We have to identify our problem. At the same time, we have to have the statement of the problem. Next is, na kailangan is clear and concise yung description ng ating statement of the problem or the SOP. And why there is a need to like solve this problem, mga ganun. And next is explanation of the problem. So of course, we have to explain that the problem by discussing it with fellow students. So explanation of the problem is maaring learner to learner, teacher to learner interaction, so that is napopromote din yung per interaction nila. At the same time is tama yung explanation ng problem sa kanila by guiding them. Next is the limitation of the problem. So of course, we have to know the limit of the problem. Kasi kapag malawak na yung problema, mahirap na siya bigyan ng solusyon. So mag-focus lang tayo dun sa parts na kailangan talaga. So i-avoid natin na maging broad pa yung problema. So as much as possible sa problema, sa pag-identify, sa pagkuha natin ng problema, bigyan natin ng limit ito. Na hindi lahat ng bawat sulok ng problema na yun ay bibigyan natin ng bibigyan natin ng pansin. So bigyan lang natin ng pansin kung ano yung mga kailangan dapat bigyan ng pansin. And next here is hypothesis. So it is also very important for them to have this hypothesis. Kasi yung hypothesis na yun yung maglilid sa kanila to create a solution. So by formulating an hypothesis, they are also making way of creating a solution to that problem. So you have to remember that making an hypothesis mas maganda or mas mainam if marami kang hypothesis. Of course, kasi cancel out ka lang ng mga hypothesis mo. If you think this problem is not suited as a solution, is i-cancel natin, i-disprove natin yung hypothesis na yon. Next is experiments. Of course, kapag naka-formulate ka na ng hypothesis, maggagawa ka naman ng experiment to verify yung hypothesis na yon. So, you have to create a experiment, and then after series of experiment, tama yung experiment, and then tama yung hypothesis mo, doon na mahuhulog sa conclusion. So sa conclusion naman is, syempre, since na-identify mo na yung problema, nakapag-hypothesis ka na, proven na yung hypothesis mo na tama, so pipili ka lang doon sa mga hypothesis mo ano yung pinaka-suited doon or fitted doon na solusyon sa problema. So that is the conclusion. So yun yung mga mahalagang steps in creating a problem-solving approach. So sa problem-solving approach, pinaka-importante dito is yung problema. So, and also this is a step-by-step approach. So, yun na, you have to identify the problem, hypothesis, testing the hypothesis or experiment, and lastly, giving a conclusion. So, paano gamitin itong approach na ito? So, how to use this approach? So, select a topic. Let us say condensation Di ba sa condensation naman, alam natin na ang condensation is solid to gas. But you don't have to say it to the children. Instead is mag-experiment ka doon and then ipakita mo sa kanila. Let them analyze kung bakit yon. So for example, a clean bottle or tumbler, glass tumbler, let us say glass tumbler is clean na yun. Dry na yun siya, natawel na yun siya inside and outside. So clean na yun siya, hindi siya wet, so dry na yun siya. So lagyan natin ng ice cube. After such time is mapapansin natin na parang may mga water na or doon sa gilid ng glass, nakapalibot na yun sa glass. So parang magtatanong ka doon sa mga student na parang ano sa tingin nila yung nangyayari. So of course, by observing yung mga student is mag-o-observe din yan sila. So after mag-observe nila is magbibigay na sila ng hypothesis nila. So maaaring may magsabi na, teacher, because yung ice is natunaw, and then pumunta siya dyan sa glass na yan. May magsasabi din na, sir, may mga butas-butas kasi yan, so lumabas yung water. May mga magsasabi din na, sir, it's because yung air is mayroon siyang water vapor. So since lumamig yung bottle is parang dumikit doon yung water vapor. So marami silang magiging discussion, and you have to select which one is the most suited hypothesis. Of course, yung condensation is solid to gas. So of course, ang pinakatama doon is yung water vapor coming from the air. Kasi it's air. Gas naman yung air. So that is why nagkakaroon ng parang tubig-tubig sa labas ng tumbler na yon. And also, or pwede rin i-allow mo na lang yung mga student mo na gumawa ng experiment. And then, sila na yung magbibigay ng solution. Sila na yung magbibigay ng verification doon sa mga hypothesis nila. So, ganun lang siya. So, paano or kailan or at bakit mahalaga ang gamitin ng approach na ito? When to use this approach and why is it need to use this approach? So, if you want to develop the problem-solving skills in your children, use this approach. So, simple. If gusto mo lang na ma-develop yung mga problem skills ng mga student mo na hindi ka naman math teacher, is gawin mo tong approach na ito. In that sense is na parang it will boost their problem solving skills kasi it really need them to give a solution sa problema na binibigay mo by doing their hypothesis and giving their solution as well. So you have to be very careful in a giving problem kasi maaaring may mga problema na ibigay mo sa kanila na hindi nila kayang i-handle. At the same time, maaaring may mga problema na hindi naman suited sa kanilang ages. So we have to be careful by giving a problem. So now let's move on to the advantage and disadvantage of this problem solving approach. So of course, number 1, advantage is students do their own learning under the guidance of their teacher. Second, they learn to propose and structure a problem. So yun, sa first is yun na, yung mga students is nakakagawa sila ng nakakapag-learn sila na hindi solely galing lang sa teacher kasi may mga ideas na galing din sa kanilang sariling opinion or sariling hypothesis. So yun, that's one of the advantage. Next is they learn to propose and structure problem. So nakakapag-propose and structure sila ng problem. So kapag bigyan mo sila ng problem is alam na nila yung gagawin nila doon. So they learn to collect varied pieces of information relevant to the problem from different sources. So nakakapag-research yan sila. So it will allow them to have the skills na magaling sa magpag-research. So ganun. The next one is they learn to formulate hypothesis. It is also very important na yung student is marunong mag-formulate ng hypothesis because this hypothesis will lead you to have a concrete solution or a good solution. They learn to test their hypothesis and collect evidences to disprove and their identified hypothesis. Of course, dito din is ma-learn din nila yung paano nila bibigyan ng verification yung kanilang mga hypothesis. At the same time, alam nila kung ano yung mga disprove and approve na hypothesis nila. Next is they learn to solve problem of their everyday life. So since yun na, nasasanay na sila sa problem solving approach is kumbaga mabibigyan na lang nila ng madaling solusyon ang mga problema na kinakaharap nila everyday. They are also closely familiar with various objects and phenomena around them, their application and relationship instead of having mere knowledge. Next is they establish healthy and favorable relationship with their teachers and peers, and they develop scientific attitude and scientific temper. So yun siya. So nadidevelop din yung kanilang mga, kumbaga is, relationship sa kanilang teacher and also sa kanilang classmate. Kasi sa teacher is siyempre magtatanong yan sila. Sa classmate naman din nila is maaaring magkaroon sila ng mutual discussion. So yun, that's it. And the disadvantage naman is this approach is very slow, lag, and time consuming. So since this is actually a problem solving approach, is you have to know na malaki talaga yung igugugol nila dito na oras. Kasi mag-experiment yan sila, magka-create yan sila ng hypothesis. So expected mo na maaaring hindi mo masunod yung time na nakalagay sa syllabus mo. Next is there is too much emphasis on practical work. Next is most of the teachers are perhaps not able to teach by this approach as they have not experienced practical teaching of science, and by this approach maaaring mahirapan yung teacher na gawin tong approach na ito. Not suitable for learning for all ages. So of course, kagaya din ng nauna, hindi rin siya suitable sa lahat ng edad. So again, it is ideal to use this approach sa intermediate elementary school or elementary class. And now, so that would be all for the problem solving approach. So now let's move on to the demonstration approach. Sa demonstration, alam naman natin na ang demonstration means to show. Kung sa lecture method is, ang ginagawa doon is yung nagre-relay lang tayo sa teacher. I mean, yung teacher is nagde-discuss lang siya. So nagre-relay lang tayo sa word na ginagamit ng ating teachers. So maybe imagination, yung skills yung mga na-improve doon. Dito naman sa demonstration is yung teacher is i-demonstrate niya paano gawin ng isang bagay. So, for example, sa experiment, maaring yung teacher is ipakita niya na ganito yung ganitong bakit pumuputok yung volcano. So, pwede yung gumawa siya ng mga experiment na may papakita doon kung paano natitrigger yung volcano. At the same time, marami siya pwedeng gawin na activity kasi it actually cost less kasi ikaw lang yung gagawa, isa lang, so maaring hindi siya ganun ka pricey. So maaring may pakita mo sa kanila yung properly yung mga experiment na yun. Demonstration provide concrete experiences to students. Thus, it helps to understand abstract ideas to students. So, of course, this is an actual experiment. So, nakikita na nila kung ano yung nangyayari. So, it gives them a concrete idea na parang, ganun pala, kaya pala pumuputok yung vulkan kasi ganito. So, hindi ka lang nagdi-discuss dyan, at the same time, nagbibigay ka ng isang mas malakas pa na support ideas. Kasi kung word lang, maaring may mga students na hindi makinig. But when you do a demonstration teaching, makikita na doon na ganito yung mga nangyayari. At the same time, nakaka-catch ng attention ng mga bata yung mga nilalagay mo sa table mo na parang mga experiment. So, parang na-excite sila. So, using demonstration method, the teacher can first illustrate abstract ideas in concrete form. Second, coordinate theory with practicals. Third, do not do those demonstrations which are dangerous for students to perform themselves. So, yun. First daw is illustrate ideas to concrete form. So, siyempre maraming ideas. So, but giving them a demonstration is parang nagiging concrete, nagiging concise yung isang idea, isang topic na yun. As also, ginagawa mo din yung isa teacher is ginagawa mo din yung mga experiment na maaaring dangerous sa mga bata na hindi nila pwede kasi there are experiment na hindi align sa mga bata. So kasi sometimes pwedeng malimutan nila mag-wear ng glove, pwedeng ganon nila sa mata nila. So by you as a teacher doing that is parang napaprevent mo sila from the risk of getting into accident. Teach how to solve a problem, and that's yun yung ano sa demonstration method. And a problem can be solved by using demonstration using the following steps. So may mga steps para ma-solve yung problem by using a demonstration. So first is pose a problem to the students. So of course you have to identify the problem and invite their hypothesis. So collect their hypothesis na parang ano yung mga nangyayari dito, bakit ito nagkakaganyan. So by them giving your hypothesis na i-collect mo din yun na i-remember yung mga hypothesis nila. Provide concrete experiences. So yun na nga, mag-experiment ka ng mag-experiment ka na ayon sa tama para mabigyan sila ng concrete ideas or solution sa kanilang mga hypothesis. Enable students to reach some right conclusions. So it will enable the students na ma-reach nila yung magkaroon sila ng right conclusion kasi maaring wrong yung conclusion nila, but you as a teacher na giving them a demonstration, makikita nila na ganito yung nangyayari. So magiging kumbaga is tama yung process. So makakapagbigay ka ng idea sa mga bata ng concrete conclusion. So how to use this approach? So when you are using method, when you are using this demonstration method, teacher should keep in mind the following characteristic of a good demonstration. So of course, you have to keep in mind na may mga characteristic din yung good demonstration na hindi basta-basta lang na ganito, ganyan ka lang siya. So of course, hindi. It should be clearly visible to all students, even the back benchers. So you have to ensure na kumbaga is yung experiment mo na yon is nakikita sa lahat ng mga bata. So kung yung material mo is medyo sa tingin mo hindi kayang makita ng mga nasa likod, maybe you could have think of a ways na para makita nila lahat. So pwede kayo mag-circle kayo niyan. So you have to ensure na makikita nila yan. Kasi kung hindi makikita ng isa, so parang what's the sense of this approach kung hindi naman makakapagbigay ng conclusion or hypothesis yung iba kasi hindi nila nakikita. Second, students should be fully involved. So kailangan ma-involve mo yung mga bata doon na hindi ikaw lang. Kahit ikaw yung gumagawa ng experiment. So of course, you have to involve your students. Hindi yung ikaw yung gumagawa niyan. So of course, maybe we could involve our students by asking them, by letting them observe. So ganun. So mga ganun yung magiging involvement ng mga students. If there are, number 3 is if there are more than one demonstration in a lesson, they should be done in a proper logical sequence. So kung marami kang gagawin na demonstration, as say tatlo kang gagawin. So of course, dapat organize yan sila and synchronize yan sila. So hindi yung gagawin mo yung isa dito tapos doon muna tayo tapos dito. So parang maguguluhan yung mga bata na parang yung hypothesis nila is parang maguguluhan din. So hindi sila makakapagbigay dyan ng magandang solusyon. Next is in a demonstration, only one idea should be taken at a time. Too many ideas in one demonstration may confuse the students. So yun, magbibigay ka lang. Every one problem is isa lang yung ibigay mo doon ng idea. Hindi yung magbibigay ka ng sobrang daming idea na mako-confuse na lang yung mga bata na hindi na lang alam kung ano yung sasagot nila or ano yung magiging hypothesis nila kasi ang dami-daming nangyayari. So maybe we could reduce our ideas into one. Kailangan din concrete and concise yung ating magiging idea, of course. As far as possible, number 5 to, as far as possible, result of the experiment demonstration should not be known to students. So yun. So kailangan yung result niya is as much as possible, if kaya is kailangan hindi nila masyadong magkaroon ng very vivid idea na ito yung nangyari. So parang let them be hanging na kumbaga mag-isip pa sila kung ano yung naging ending ng na yun, experimentation na yun. So advantage and disadvantage naman tayo ng demonstration method. So one of the advantage neto is there is a possibility of using more sophisticated apparatus which generally student cannot handle in laboratory. So maaari may mga apparatus tayo dito na hindi pwedeng hawakan ng mga bata kasi pwedeng mabasag. So yun, maiiwasan yung mga ganong accidents. Number 2 is more difficult experiments may be undertaken. So pwede natin makikita na yung mga experiment na hindi pwedeng gawin ng mga bata kasi you as a teacher naman yung gagawa. So you are cautious more than how students are cautious. So kumbaga is magiging possible na yun na magagawa na yung mga activity na hindi nila kayang gawin. Third is more hazardous experiment may be attempted. So pwede kayong gumamit ng mga chemical experiment na dyan kasi ikaw lang naman yung teacher yung gumagawa. So pero still you have to be cautious din sa paggawa ng hazardous na mga activities kasi pwedeng hindi mo alam ano yung nangyayari. Maaaring may lumapit na bata, matalsikan. So you have to set a distance sa kanila para maiwasan natin yung mga ganong experiences. So, for expenses may be minimized compared to laboratory method. So, of course, since ikaw lang naman yung gumagawa, so maliit na yung magagastos compare kung lahat kayo gagawa, so marami kayong bibilhin para ma-experience ang lahat. Fifth is there is a possibility of demonstrating manipulatives and allied practical skills. So, yun. Six is there is a possibility to draw attention of all students of the class simultaneously. So, yun din. So, makakasya mo yung attention nila. Of course, because you are doing an experiment there. So, kids love experiment very much. It takes less time compared to laboratory and other innovative methods like inquiry approach, problem-solving approach, scientific method, and project method. So, maliit na yung time na i-google natin dito dahil ikaw lang teacher naman yung gumagawa dyan and mabilis kang gumawa kasi teacher ka. Alam mo na yung procedure na yun. So, magiging mabilis yung experimentations natin here or dito. And also, this method is more efficient. So, efficient siya compared sa mga ibang approach kasi mabilis lang siya matapos. And also, all students can see the same operation technique simultaneously. So, lahat na sila, makikita nila kung ano yung ginagawa mo and ma-observe nila yung mga techniques na ginamit mo. So, alam nila yung magiging tamang procedure ng activities na yun. And teacher is in position to explain each and every step. So, yun na. So, habang ginagawa mo yung experiment na yun, na-discuss mo every step ng experiment na yun, na ganito yung ginawa, ganito yung nangyayari. So, yun. So, parang hindi na siya mahirap i-discuss sa mga bata. So, may disadvantage din dito. Ang disadvantage dito is all students do not do the experiment with their own hands. So, of course, hindi lahat ng mga estudyante is nakakagawa sila ng actual experiment kasi nakikita lang nila yun eh. Number 2 is when the demonstration is complex or there's too many demonstration in one lesson, students feel difficulty in understanding. So kapag marami ka nang ginagawa, syempre efficient yung paggawa ng experiment dito, di ba? So kapag marami kang ginagawa ng experiment is parang magiging malilito, mako-confuse na lang yung mga bata kung ano ba yung parang nangyayari. So masyadong maraming nangyayari, so mako-confuse yan sila. Number 3 is various detail of apparatus, significant reaction, and other essential step undertaken by the teacher is during conclusion and not necessarily visible to all students. So, maaari yung mga apparatus na ginawa mo is hindi siya visible to all students. Maaari yung mga tao sa likod is hindi nila masyadong nakikita na 5 ml pala yun. So, akala nila is okay lang na kahit ano yung sizes, ano yung laki ng tubig is okay as long as nasa apparatus na yun. So, hindi. So, mahirap kita sa kanila na hindi naman pwedeng individually na papuntahin mo sila because it will take so much time. Number 4, it deprives students the opportunity. So of course, it deprives students the opportunity to explore more about experimentations. Kumbaga is ma-involve doon sa experimentation. So it actually not ideal na hindi sila ma-experience doon because sabi nga nila, experience is the best teacher. But you as a teacher have the capacity to make a better discussion naman. So I think that would be also again the 3 approaches na diniscuss ko is the inquiry approach, the problem solving approach, and lastly is the demonstration approach. So that would be all for my part, and yeah, goodbye.